We talked about patriotism. When patriotism, nationalism acquires a militant flavor, becomes militaristic, starts turning into jingoism, and people get excited and start talking about war and defeating and beating enemy countries, hostile nations, enemy nations, inimical nations, and war with your enemies, enemy nation states. That's something that one needs to talk about. And when so it's connected to that idea, and when it comes to that, I think most people have not grasped the idea of the effectiveness of something called nuclear deterrence and the crazy yet extremely effective doctrine of known as MAD, mutually assured destruction, aptly named MAD or MAD. So let's look at it. After Second World War, nuclear weapons were developed, and just about when the war was ending, and America developed nuclear weapons and bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan, and Japan immediately surrendered. So that was the only time nuclear weapons were actually used in war, in a war. After that, they have never ever been used. But we are aware that there are several countries which have nuclear weapons, atom bombs and hydrogen bombs. And it became so America, and when it was clear that America had nuclear weapons, so the other superpower, Soviet Union, also developed nuclear weapons, the erstwhile USSR. And we had an arms race which went on for years after the Second World War. And these two superpowers, US and USSR, entered a huge, massive arms race costing a lot of money and built massive nuclear weapon arsenals and stockpiles. And they have so many weapons that if all those weapons are used, not only America and Russia, a large part of the world would be destroyed. A large part of mankind would be destroyed. There would be immediate destruction of life, and then subsequent destruction through radiation and cancer because of radiation. In Hiroshima and Nagasaki, when the bombs were dropped, many people died immediately. They were incinerated. They were just vaporized or evaporated. And then subsequently, generations of children were born with defects because of radiation, which doesn't go away, which has a long half-life. So people have cancer and all that. So that has happened in places where nuclear radiation has happened, maybe in Chernobyl in Russia and all those places where there were nuclear accidents. So, but US and Russia never fought directly, never went to war against each other. There was something called Cold War which went on between them. Cold War was, they were hostile to each other, they spied on each other and all that, but it never being turned into a direct war, an open direct war, a hot war, so to speak, simply because of this MAD doctrine, mutually assured destruction. If they went to war, if they had gone to war, and if that war had turned into a nuclear confrontation, and if both the countries had started using nuclear weapons against each other, then they would have destroyed each other completely. So mutually assured destruction, and maybe most of the planet along with them. So that fear acted as a deterrent. I want to kill you, but I can't kill you because you have the power to kill me. I can kill you, but you can also kill me. So that stops me from killing you. And that is the deterrence. The deterrence is that I have nuclear weapons and I can destroy you with my nuclear weapons. And nuclear weapons are much more destructive than conventional weapons. But you too have nuclear weapons and you too can destroy me. So there is no point in fighting. There is no point in having a war which would destroy me. I can destroy you, but you can as well. You can also destroy me. So that is unwinnable. Or if I get a victory, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. It would come at a huge cost to me, and it would be devastating for me. So there is no point in fighting a war and winning a war in which I win, but I am as good as like a loser. I mean, I am practically destroyed. Nothing much is left. I am standing there, and you are dead, but I am like half dead or almost dead. So that kind of war doesn't make sense to me, because the devastation is unthinkable, inconceivable. Both the sides, the victor and the defeated party and the loser. So that is the principle of nuclear deterrence, or the mutually assured destruction aspect of it. And because of that, they kept on developing, building nuclear weapons, but they never actually used it. And so there has so because of this nuclear deterrence aspect and the arms race, both US and USSR kept on developing and stockpiling nuclear weapons and arsenals, but they never actually used them. They still have those weapons, but they have never been used. So this is the takeaway, that nuclear deterrence has ensured peace in the world, because since nation states and superpowers and nuclear weapons, they are afraid to go to war because the other guy can destroy you and you can destroy the other guy. So that has kind of, in a way, brought peace to the world. People are too scared of going to go to war because you can't win this war. It is unwinnable. And that has ironically made the world a peaceful place. And the recent case of Russian special military action against Ukraine happened simply because Ukraine doesn't have nuclear weapons. Russia, I don't think Russia would have invaded or initiated this military action or war or whatever you want to call it against Ukraine if Ukraine had nuclear weapons. It had earlier when it was a part of the USSR. Now it doesn't. So that's why Russia wasn't too scared of invading or initiating this military action. But when it comes to nations which have nuclear weapons, 8 countries are openly nuclear weapon states: America, Russia, China, France, Britain, that's UK, and Pakistan, North Korea, India. So America, Russia, China, Britain or UK, and France. Yes, France. So there's 5 of them. And India, Pakistan, and North Korea. These are open. Everybody knows that these countries have nuclear weapons, atom bombs, and maybe hydrogen bombs, fission as well as fusion bombs, probably. That's why likelihood of war between any 2 of these countries is kind of something that is not going to happen. A full all-out war. Because I mean, even North Korea is a poor small country but has nuclear weapons, and that's why no other nuclear power has openly tried to go to war against North Korea. So similarly, a full-scale all-out war between 2 nuclear weapon states or nuclear power nations is very unlikely, and it's not going to happen because it can be destructive, hugely destructive to both the parties concerned, to both the countries concerned. And that's what makes it, you can have small skirmishes and fights and limited actions and limited battles and limited war, so to speak. But now an all-out war is not possible, because then the nuclear option would come into force, would come into play eventually, and that's when things go crazy and you don't know what's going to happen. Two nuclear weapon states, countries going at each other with their nuclear weapons would mean that both of them would practically be destroyed, or one would be destroyed, the other would be relatively be largely destroyed, and would affect many other countries and rest of the world also, directly, indirectly, through radiation and all those sorts of things. If you drop an atom bomb on your neighboring country, the radiation would travel to your country also. How are you going to stop that if it is close to you? So these are the problems. So when people talk about, get excited and get jingoistic and nationalistic and all that and start talking about war, they must not forget this, that nuclear deterrence is an extremely effective idea, and that's why we don't have war, and we can't go to war with another nuclear power state. We are a nuclear power country. For example, India has nuclear weapons, but let's say and that there is safety in that. No other country, including a nuclear power state, would ever go to war, would ever go to an all-out war with India, because it would also suffer a lot. So India is safe, and the other countries who have nuclear weapons are also safe from India. So China and India can never go to war with each other, and which is an all-out war, because both are nuclear powers, huge nuclear powers. So no one would really win this kind of war. So there is peace. You can have skirmishes and you can have border fights and stuff like that, but an all-out war seems to be unthinkable, inconceivable. So India is safe. Each nuclear power state is safe, mostly safe from another nuclear power state, right? And there is nothing beyond that. A nuclear power state may invade another country which doesn't have nuclear power, as has happened between Russia and Ukraine. So Ukraine had that problem. It didn't have that security. We have that security. So similarly, an Indo-Pak war now, an all-out Indo-Pak war, whether over Kashmir or Pakistan occupied Kashmir, is nonsensical. One shouldn't talk about things like that, because if India and Pakistan go to war and if it becomes a nuclear, it escalates into a nuclear conflict, then Pakistan is a nuclear weapon state, India is a nuclear weapon state. And if India and Pakistan go to a war, and then eventually nuclear weapons would be used, then both nations would suffer horrendously, inconceivably. It would be devastating for both these countries, and there would be no clear winners, and there would be massive destruction of life and everything else, and it would affect other countries also. And these things would even eventually spill over into something like a world war or something. So when we talk about, when you get too excited, citizens get too excited about bashing up another country and all that, they must not forget this. They must not forget that the country that you are talking about, or if you have some country in mind and you perceive that country to be your enemy, you have to see that that enemy has certain capabilities, and those capabilities are dangerous and devastating. So nuclear deterrence works. That's why there is peace in the world, has been peace. Two nuclear power countries do not go to war with each other because they are scared of what might happen. So we should never ever forget this. Most people seem to be unaware of this, or are not really clear about it. So war between two nuclear weapon countries is almost ruled out. Let us keep that in mind, and one should not even think about that, because it would be disastrous. And so between all these combinations between two nuclear power states, or among nuclear power states or countries, and as I mentioned, there are 8. America has nuclear weapons, Russia has nuclear weapons, China has, India has, France has, UK has, and North Korea has. And maybe some other countries have, but they are not openly, they haven't declared it openly. But these eight do have, and they really have. So, war between or among these countries must be avoided. There can be confrontations and limited fights and limited battles and limited wars, but all out war is should be pretty much ruled out. And people need to understand and grasp this simple fact. Thank you.